When you look at a wine label, one of the first things you'll notice is the vintage. This is the year that the grapes were harvested for that wine. In the wine world, vintage variation is talked about constantly. Some years are celebrated, others not so much. But is vintage variation actually real? The answer is yes and also no. Let me explain why. Welcome back to the VINVERITY Show. Wine is made from grapes, and grapes are an agricultural product. They're grown outdoors on this planet under real climatic conditions. That alone makes vintage variation unavoidable. The climate and the growing season have real effects on grape quality and character. For example, a long, warm growing season often leads to higher sugar levels, higher alcohol, riper, darker fruit flavors, sometimes jammy or cooked notes, whereas a cooler vintage can result in lower sugars, higher acidity, lower alcohol, brighter, more tart fruit, and occasionally underripe character. This can be ideal for sparkling wine, but challenging for some still wines. Rain near harvest can dilute grapes, reducing concentration and flavor. Sunlight, water stress, and temperature all influence how grapes ripen. And each grape variety responds differently because each has unique ripening needs and aromatic compounds. Climate also plays a major role in the development of tannins. Warm climates tend to produce grapes with thicker skins and higher tannin concentration. These tannins are often riper, smoother, and more velvety. Cool climates allow slower ripening. Tannins may be finer but more angular or astringent when young. Extreme heat above 35 degrees Celsius can actually disrupt tannin and color formation altogether. So, yes, when wine is grown and made with minimal interference, vintage variation is absolutely real. And honestly, this is one of wine's greatest joys. Wine made in this philosophy becomes a time capsule. It's a sensory record of a place and a year. Differences between vintages shouldn't be scorned, they should be celebrated. Wine was never meant to be uniform, it was meant to be life, art, and nourishment. Now, for the other side of the story, let me explain why vintage variation often isn't real. If wine is heavily corrected, vintage variation becomes largely meaningless. There are famous vintages, great years, and disastrous ones, but that doesn't mean that every bottle from that year and region tells the same story. Why? Well, because not all producers farm or vinify the same way, skill between wine producers varies, and corrective measures exist. Let's take Burgundy as an example. Burgundy produces roughly 200 million bottles of wine per year. Now, the majority are not from tiny artisanal domains. They come from cooperatives, large negociants, and volume driven producers focused on consistency. That doesn't automatically mean bad, but it does mean that intervention is common in one way or another. For example, practices like chaptalization, which is the addition of sugar to increase alcohol and body, are historically normal in Burgundy. And modern tools go much further. Such measures are a commonality worldwide. In every region across the globe, many conventional producers aim to make wine taste the same every year, regardless of climatic differences year to year. This is where additives, processing aids, and corrective measures come in. One well-known example is called Mega Purple. Mega Purple is a highly concentrated grape syrup. It's about 68% sugar. It's made for a Teinturier grape called Ruby Red. So, Mega Purple is used to darken color, add sweetness, and increase perceived richness as well as alcohol. It's reportedly used in tens of millions of bottles per year, primarily in low to mid price wines, but it has been known to be used in more expensive premium wines as well. Mega Purple does not appear on labels, much like the 70 plus other wine additives. While Mega Purple is famous in the US, made by Constellation brand, it's not the only wine concentrate of its kind. Similar products exist globally under different names. Now, to be clear, price does not equal purity. Expensive wines do not mean they are unmanipulated, and affordable does not automatically mean bad. If a producer is genuinely artisanal and minimally interventionist, these tools are not used regardless of the price point. So, is vintage variation real? Here's the truth. In artisanal low intervention wines, yes, absolutely. In most mass market wines, no, not really. And that's by design. Most wines today are engineered for consistency, not expression. Wine labels won't tell you this. Most additives aren't listed, sugar levels aren't listed, and processing aids and techniques are hidden. Only allergens must be disclosed, like sulfites, eggs, fish, wheat, and dairy. Do not you worry, we will be covering how these allergens are ending up in your wine in a later episode. Now, in positive news, since 2023, under new EU regulations, wine labels must list these previously undisclosed processing aids either on the label or digitally with a QR code. So, with lacking wine labels, how do you know what's in your wine? Keep learning and get to know the producers you can trust, ask questions, and always trust transparency, not marketing. In conclusion, vintage variation is real when wine is allowed to be itself. And as consumers, we can choose uniformity or individuality. Personally, I hope we continue to see a return to wines that reflect place, season, and time. Wines that remind us why wine mattered in the first place. If you want to keep learning the truth about wine without the marketing gloss, our Wine 101 course walks you through winemaking and how to choose wine with confidence. You can also download the Additives and Natural to Industrial Wine PDF linked below this episode. And until next time, in wine there is truth.